My name's Greg Schwanbeck, and I am a physics and astronomy teacher at Westwood High School, and I'm also an instructional technology coach there. I've been a physics teacher for 10 years and an instructional technology coach for 2 years. The framework that I use when deciding on what technologies to use or to not use in my classroom, or when helping a colleague select a technology to integrate into their classroom, is split into two halves. There's a logistical half, and there's an instructional half. And neither one of these sides is really more important than the other. In fact, all of the factors within each one of these halves work with each other and interplay with each other and have different relative weights depending on the exact situation and the educator who's rolling out the technology. The logistical half has several different factors. First and foremost is cost. How much is the technology going to run you and who's going to pay for it? There are all sorts of different models that a teacher can look at where they're not going to have any money that comes out of pocket. From freemium services where they might be able to live on the freemium version and not have to upgrade to premium, to having expensive software that they can have paid for via either grant or getting their district to pay for it, to services that just exist in a purely free and purely great form. But that's the number one thing to look at least right off the bat is this even possible to have in the classroom from a financial standpoint? Another factor on the logistical side of things is access. Do your students have access to the technology or the device that will run that technology that you're interested in? I'm in a one-to-one district, so I'm looking first and foremost at technologies that will work on a Chromebook. Some of my favorite technologies actually don't, and it's very frustrating to me. For teachers or educators who are in districts that aren't one-to-one, maybe you want to be looking at smartphones because there's a lot of students, especially when you get to the high school level, really across all sorts of different types of schools. You have a high percentage of students who do have access to smartphones, and you can use smartphone-based apps in your classroom. If a significant number of your students don't have access to the technology, it's probably not going to be a technology that'll be worthwhile to bring into your classroom. Special needs accessibility is a factor right behind that. If you have students with, say, a vision impairment or issues with motor skills, that's something you need to consider when bringing a technology into the classroom, because you don't want to put one or two students in a situation where they're going to be left out. So you'll want to look at and maybe even work with the special education department to see if there's ways that you can work around any limitations that a technology has on that end. Next up is usability. How easy is the technology to learn? How much class time are you going to need to invest teaching your students how to get started? There are some technologies that have a user interface or are simple enough that students are able to pick it up really, really quickly. Some of the best technologies to bring into the classroom are technologies that students already know how to use. Another logistical factor, flexibility. If you're going to invest some time and some effort and maybe some money in bringing this technology into the classroom, how often are you going to be able to use it? I like to think of a kitchen appliance analogy here. If you have one of those air-popping popcorn machines like I do, it's great. It does its job really well. And if you want popcorn, it's perfect for that. But it takes up some shelf space and it only does one thing, which is make delicious popcorn. That's on one side of the spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum, you have something like a chef's knife. A chef's knife takes some time to learn how to use, but you can do thousands of different things with it. We have that same spectrum in educational technology. You have technologies like Touch Press, which makes some really great resources, mostly iPad-based. They have a really great interactive periodic table of the elements. They have some other resources for humanities classrooms, but they only really do one thing. They only teach you the periodic table of the elements. Whereas something like learning how to use a spreadsheet has all sorts of applications in a science class, in a math class, in a statistics class, and really beyond. So that's something that's more versatile and therefore might be something that you would want to bring into your classroom because the students would be able to use it so many times and use it so frequently. So that's a big continuum, and you want to figure out where on that continuum does your educational technology lie? Is it more of a chef's knife, or is it more of a popcorn machine? Our instructional factors are quality of learning, efficiency of learning, collateral skill development, and creation of opportunity. The quality of learning that an educational technology can bring into the classroom is another one of the most important factors to consider. Some technologies do a really great job of letting students go deeper into material and giving them a more complex understanding of what's going on without bogging them down in minutia or overly complex things that might bring them off task. So let's talk about the efficiency of learning. Educational technologies can help people learn more efficiently, and that's one of the really great benefits of certain technologies. One example of a technology that I use in my class that's so much more efficient than what I used to do is when I'm teaching standing waves. And it's something really simple. It's an animation of standing waves as a superposition of two waves interfering with each other. And if you see it, all of a sudden you know what a standing wave is and why it exists. Prior to that, I had to use these frame-by-frame worksheets that took forever. They were confusing. It went from being one of the hardest subjects for me to teach in my physics class to one of the easiest and one of the quickest, just because I had the power of animation to help students visualize what was going on. So efficiency is a really important factor for me when I'm deciding what to bring into the classroom. Creation of new opportunity is another factor to consider when you're deciding whether or not to bring technology into the classroom. There are certain technologies that make the impossible possible, and that can be a real strength and a real important reason why you'd want to adopt the technology. I love using YouTube videos and also PhET simulations and other physics simulations online to bring into my physics classroom experiments that would be either too dangerous or cost prohibitive to do myself. After nearly burning down the school making a Rubens tube, I decided to just show a video of the Rubens tube instead. And I'm also able to show some really cool things that would be completely impossible to bring into the classroom, like bungee jumping and motorcycle stunt racing. We're able to take something like that that really engages the students and bring it into the classroom in a meaningful way by using some of the technology. We've got simulations where they can work with radioactivity, which we really can't do at the high school level. So you really are making the impossible possible with certain technologies. Another instructional factor to consider is collateral skill development. What other skills will your students learn through the use of that technology? If you want to bring something like iMovie into the classroom, students are going to learn about the artistic aspects of presenting an idea through the video medium. They're going to learn how to make videos for themselves in the future. They're going to learn about flow and pacing and how to present information through that sort of visual media. I think this framework, or at least this way of thinking, should almost always be used whenever you're considering bringing a technology or even anything else into your classroom or adjusting your instruction or your curriculum in any way. I think it's important to realize that educational technology is just another tool in a teacher's toolbox, like a textbook or like the style of board work that the teacher uses, or whether the class is more hands-on or not hands-on, or even like the furniture you have in the room. There are so many different pieces that go into teaching, and there are so many different decisions that a teacher must make when deciding how they're going to run their class and how students are going to learn best. Where are you going to find that effective common ground between the students, the content, and the teacher? And educational technology is really just one piece of that. But a good teacher should always be thinking about what tools can I bring into the classroom that can improve over current practice. And this framework will help you really determine whether a particular piece of educational technology will help you in class. Each one of these factors, you want to compare it to what your current practice is, how well it stacks up to that factor. So if I'm used to explaining projectile motion by having students do a bunch of word problems and then fire a marble launcher for a lab, how effective is that? How efficient is it? How much does it cost? All of these factors play a role with that sort of non-technology usage in a class. And then if I want to think about bringing in, say, a computer simulation where you can fire a cannon at various angles at various speeds, how will that improve upon or maybe be worse than my current practice? And any time I'm making a decision, whether it's a large decision that's going to affect me for the entire course, or a small one, what are we going to do for the activity in the second half of class? It's something where I'm trying to logically and thoroughly go through how that will change based off how that will change my instruction, and will it be for the benefit of my students or not.